Welcome to Chapter 9 on Basics in Biblical Hebrew Studies. We're going to go start in the chapter with Hebrew pronominal suffixes. Last chapter we studied was the pronouns and demonstrative pronouns and personal pronouns. So we're going to build upon this with the Hebrew pronominal suffixes. In the last chapter, we studied the subject, which was the personal pronoun he, she, we, as independent personal pronouns. In this chapter, we'll study pronouns that can be either possessive or objective, basically as an object or to show possession. In Hebrew, these possessive and objective pronouns appear as suffixes on nouns and prepositions and the definite direct object marker. And for this reason, they're called pronominal suffixes. When appearing on nouns, they are possessive as in, say, his book. His is showing whose book it is, or her wisdom. When approaching on prepositions, when appearing on prepositions or definite direct object marker, they are objective as to them or for them or them. They are actually a direct object upon the present, what we call the object of the preposition in English. And so we're going to go ahead and get into these a little bit. And let's go ahead and start with the pronominal suffixes here. In Hebrew, there are two sets of pronominal suffixes to be learned. There's a type 1 and a type 2. Now, both types have the same possessive and objective translation values. So as suffixes, these pronouns are attached to the end of a word. And let's go ahead and go into what these pronominal suffixes look like, and get these up here for you. All right, this is a type 1 suffix and type 2 suffix. We have the first common singular here, which is the hierarch yod. And we have in the second masculine singular, we have the kaf sofit and the comets up under it, ka. And we're familiar with this, Elohecha. Elohecha basically is the, your God, your God. You masculine singular, your God. And so once we go through these, you'll recognize you've seen quite a few of these already on things that you've been quoting in scripture here. The second feminine singular is the kaf sofit with these little two dots that look like a shavah. That's actually a glottal stop for the kaf. They actually don't have a sound here. They just are silent. It just stops at a particular consonant in its tracks. And the third masculine singular here is O. The holum and the vav is a long O, a historical long vowel. So it's O. And so that would be like his book. This would be like your book, feminine, your book, the masculine singular, and my book here in here. So and then you have the third feminine singular, which is a comets and a hay with a little dot. We went briefly over this last chapter with the mapik. This is a little dot in this hay is called a mapik. This tells us that this is this comets hay and this hay with the mapik is a third feminine singular pronominal suffix. That would be her book. If we were putting it onto the word safer for book. And then we go into the plural, first common plural, our book, which is new, chem or chem, which is your book, second masculine plural, ken, which is second feminine plural, your book feminine, him, third masculine plural, their book, and hen is their book, third feminine plural. And I always like to think about remember I told you earlier that when we went through the I think it was pronouns and stuff, that the mem suffix usually is a good indicator to tell you that that is masculine. And you see the mem here and the noon here, the mem here for third masculine plural, and the noon here for third feminine plural. And I think about a hen as being a hen. You know, a hen is a female chicken. So hen is third feminine plural. Him is like him, like guys, or third masculine plural. So anything that you can use to associate this would be well done. And when we get into the type 2 suffixes, the type 2 suffixes normally are attached to are showing that the noun that it's attached to is plural. So it's not only just my book, but it's my books, your books, your books, feminine singular, his books, her books, our books, you all's books, feminine plural, their books, and their books, third feminine plural. And one of the keys to it as we get into it lesson is that the yod will be a key. That will tell you, the yod in the suffix here will tell you that that is a plural noun that pronominal suffix is attached to. And for most cases, the type 1s are attached to singular nouns. And we see that these also are, like me over here, would be when this was attached to a preposition, ali, upon me, alecha, or alcha, would be upon you, alek, upon you, alo, upon him, Allah, upon her, alenu, upon us, alechem, upon you, alechem, upon you, plural. And so you can see how it works all the way down as a direct object. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But let's go ahead and go into the notes here and just explain the type 1, type 2 here. Again, as I said before, with few exceptions, the type 1 suffixes occur with singular nouns, and type 2 suffixes occur with plural nouns. All pronominal suffixes have a person, a first, second, and third, a gender, male or female, and a number, singular and plural. Just like we learned with the adjectives, that they have a gender and a number on here. I agree with the noun in gender, number, and indefiniteness. In this case, we have a person, which is first person, second person, or third person here. Now, in general, there are many similarities in form between the type 1 and type 2 suffixes, especially in the plural. But all type 2 suffixes have the yod as part of their spelling. As I mentioned earlier, that's a key to look for to show you that that is the type 2 pronominal suffix attached to a noun or a preposition. It is the presence of this yod that will enable you to distinguish between the two types, type 1 and type 2. Now, as we mentioned before, note that the dot in the hey of the type 1 third feminine singular, which is this hey with a dot in it, called my peak, this is not a Dagesh linear or Dagesh forte. Dagesh linears only occur in begakefet consonants, and Dagesh forte cannot occur in gutturals or resh. So this dot is in a final hey is called a mapik and frequently marks the third feminine singular suffix, as I mentioned earlier. It means her whatever, her book, her house, upon her, or for her. As we get into the prepositions in a little bit, you'll see that. Now, there are a few alternate forms that are in existence for the type 1 pronominal suffixes. They should not give you much trouble, but are important forms to memorize here. You will encounter these alternate forms on selected nouns and prepositions below. So let's look at the type 1 and then the alternate form. We have again the heroic yod, E, and then we have sometimes the alternate form for first common singular. This is my or me. Uh, this is ni. It's the alternate form. You have a noon, a heroic yod. That could either be my book or to or for me if it's being used upon a preposition for a direct object. We have whole and vav for him, and we have who for him. So there are alternate forms here, and you'll look and see, and just you'll get used to it as you go through the homework. Again, we have the third feminine singular here, which is a comet's hay with a my peak in the hay, and then we have just a hay with a comet's. This is a ha. This is a, and this is ha. So they both are telling you that that is a third feminine singular pronominal suffix attached to either a noun or a preposition. Her book, or upon her, or to her if it's a preposition. Third masculine plural, we have a him, as we had before, him, and then we have am, and am means there or to them, or them. Depends if it's an object on a preposition or if it is attached to a noun. And we have hen, as in the type 1. Then we have an. Again, we have the mem for the masculine and nun suffix for the feminine. Mem suffix and nun suffix here. All right, let's go ahead and go through masculine nouns with their pronominal suffixes. It's already been explained that pronominal suffixes on nouns express possession. So singular nouns use type 1 suffixes and plural nouns use type 2 suffixes. And here's a following paradigm use of the masculine noun sus, which means horse. So we're going to illustrate how masculine nouns receive the pronominal suffixes. Okay, we have sus here in black, the horse is the root, and highlighted in red are the pronominal suffixes. Now sus is a noun, so these pronominal suffixes will show possession. Susi is my horse. Susecha is your horse. Susek is your horse, second feminine. Suso is his horse, third masculine singular. And Susa is her horse, third feminine singular. We go into the first common plural, Susenu, our horse. Susechem, your horse, plural. You all's horse. That's what's plural. The noun is singular. And Susechem, which is you all feminine horse. Susam, which is their horse, and Susan, which is their horse, third feminine. The on tells us that it's the feminine plural of their, that it's the women's horse, it's the female's horse. The here tells us it's the masculine, that it's the male's horse, a guy's horse, their horse. Okay, if we go over to the type 2 suffixes here, and we have susai, the patak yod, susai, and we're familiar with I, the patak yod. Matter of fact, we have what they call, we've gone through quite a few times, Adonai. It's not just one Lord, but a plural, my lords. There's this again. There is this oneness, or basically multiples into one unity right there. So we have Susai, my horses, Susecha, your horses, Susaik, your horses, basically feminine, Susaiv, this is his horses, and then Susecha, Suseha is her horses. Susenu, our horses. Susechem, your horses. Susehen, your horses. Second feminine plural. Susehem, their horses, masculine. Masculine is the pronominal suffix. Susehen is their horses, feminine here. Uh, their horses. So those written in red highlights here shows you that these are the pronominal suffixes that are attached to the nouns here, showing possession. And as you can see, the yod is pretty much consistent throughout these pronominal suffixes. The only problem you may run into, and we will get into it later on, is when you see a noun like brother, ach or achi, that has a hierarchy yod, and avi for father. That is not a showing that it's plural, that the noun's plural. That's just a form that they use. It tends to use with the hierarchy yod, and we'll go into that a little bit later on. And we'll show you the difference here, but that's the only two that come to mind that you could get confused a little bit. It is important to understand that singular nouns can take both singular and plural pronominal suffixes. In the same way, plural nouns can take both singular and plural pronominal suffixes. For example, the singular noun sus can take both a singular suffix susi, my horse, or a plural suffix susenu, our horse. In these two examples, the noun is singular in both instances, but the pronominal suffix is singular in first example and plural in the second example. So the tendency can be sometimes in your mind to get confused between the singular and the plurality of the pronominal suffix, and the singular and the plurality of the subject of the noun. So that's the thing you just have to divide in, and we're going to go into this too to show you when you get into plural nouns. When pronominal suffixes are added to a masculine plural noun, the masculine plural ending hierarchy yod mem is dropped. With the absence of this ending, a masculine noun is often recognizable as plural only by the use of the type 2 pronominal suffixes, because masculine nouns tend to be what? Endingless nouns. They have no ending that really shows you that that's masculine. So the pluralization of that masculine noun actually drops off, and the pronominal suffix is added on. So the only way you can notice it is the type 2 is by the pronominal suffix, that yod that's attached to it. If a feminine noun takes a masculine plural ending, then it will also follow the masculine plural pattern above. For example, the feminine noun ear, that is city, takes the masculine plural ending. Irene has a hierarchy yod mem sofit ending here, right here. Now, when the pronominal suffix is added, this feminine noun continues to act like a masculine noun. It takes the type 2 here. It goes arechem, your cities. So basically, it takes that yod with the seri here, and when we get into construct nouns in the next chapter, this will be more apparent too when you see the construct form of the masculine plural noun here. Now be careful to note that the important distinction between the first common singular suffixes in singular and plural nouns. Here's susi, which is my horse, one horse, and susai, which is my horses. With the singular noun, the suffix is hierarchy yod. With the plural noun, the suffix is patak yod. So you just make that distinction in here. Whenever you see that patak yod, that's telling you that that noun is plural. That is a type 2. In the masculine singular noun paradigm above, the alternate endings appear in the forms of susam. Susam is their horse, third masculine plural with the third masculine plural suffix. And Susan is with the third feminine plural suffix. So it's just important to memorize the type 1 alternate suffixes that we went over too. You'll see those. But again, as you go through the homework and you go through your reading, you're going to see this so often. Pronominal suffixes are so frequent within the Hebrew scriptures that it's so important to get this down and to know this because you're going to see it everywhere you go when you read the scriptures. Now, nouns that have an ending with a sagol hey will frequently drop this ending before adding pronominal suffixes. For example, in sadeh, for field, it becomes sadecha. So the sagol hey drops out, and the only thing remains is the vowel here that connects the root to the pronominal suffix here. That's what we call a stem vowel here. And or sadi, my field. In order to locate these nouns in the lexicon, you must be able to recognize that the sagol hey ending has been dropped. Now let's go ahead and get into the feminine nouns with pronominal suffix. We've gotten into the masculine nouns. Let's get into the feminine nouns here and go through and see how we can recognize the feminine nouns. Now, feminine nouns also take type 1 suffixes in the singular and type 2 suffixes in the plural. The following chart uses the feminine noun Torah, which we're familiar with Torah, to illustrate how feminine noun endings in comments hey receive their pronominal suffixes. Okay, for example, under the type 1 suffixes, the noun's going to be singular. So when we have a comments hey noun here, which is the ending, this tells us that this noun is feminine. The comments hey is the indicator that it is singular and that it is feminine. When we add a pronominal suffix to a feminine noun that has comments hey, the hey drops out of the hey drops out off the noun and it is replaced with a tav. So we have tarat. Okay, so tarat, and then you add the pronominal suffix here, which is the hierarch yod. So tarati, torati. My law, Toratecha, your law, Toratek, your law, second feminine singular, Torato is his law, Torata is her law or her instruction. We get into the plural, is Toratenu, our law, Toratkin. Remember, this is a non-vocal shava because it's following a short vowel here. So Toratkim is how you'd pronunciate this. Is your law, you plural, masculine plural, law. And Toratkin, or Toratkin, this is second feminine, your law, second feminine singular here. Toratam is their law, and Toratan is their law, feminine, plural. Okay, the noun is singular, but you have your singular possessions, persons here, and then your plural possessions here. Now let's see what happens. We saw that the hey drops off and the tav takes its place in the comments hey feminine nouns. Let's see what the feminine noun Torah is. We learned when we studied nouns that the comments hey noun or feminine noun would drop the comments and the hey off altogether when it goes feminine, and it is Torot. Well, the same thing is here. It becomes Torot when it's plural, when it's laws, and all you do is add the pronominal suffix. You have the patakyo, so torotai is here. Torotecha is your second masculine singular with a plural noun, your laws. Torotaik is second feminine singular, your laws. Torotai is his laws. And then Torotecha, that would be her laws here. Torotenu, our laws. Torotechem, your laws. Torotechen, your laws, second feminine plural. And then Torotehem, their laws. And Torotehen, their laws, third feminine plural here. So all we do here is in the comments, hey, ending for Torah, it drops off when you go into the plural. So the only things you have to really remember is that the comments, hey, drops off. Or actually, when it's singular, the hey drops out, the tav takes its place. And when it goes to the plural, the comments hey drops off, and oat, the whole and above tav takes its place, like we learned in the nouns, the feminine nouns. There's no difference there. It's the same thing in the plural as with the nouns that you learned back in a few chapters ago. So that's the only difference right there. And besides just getting used to the pronominal suffixes, that's the only thing that's really you have to learn on it here. Okay, let's just go ahead and look through the notes here. And when a feminine singular noun ending in comments hey, as in Torah, receives a pronominal suffix, the hey is replaced by the tav. Now that's pretty simple, just drops off. In other words, the feminine singular noun Torah becomes tarat, with a tav, before receiving a pronominal suffix. Note the presence of the tav in every form of the feminine singular paradigm above. The inability to recognize this tav as indicative of the feminine singular noun endings in the comments hey will prevent that identification of its lexical form. So you remember when we talked about feminine nouns, whenever you saw either comments hey or that some of the feminine nouns endings were like patak tav, shurik tav, hirik yod tav, sagol tav. Those were indicating the tav is the indicator that it's feminine. And that's what the characteristic is here. The hey drops out, the tav takes its place in here. Unlike masculine plural nouns, the feminine plural nouns retain their plural ending of oat. And in this case, both the feminine plural ending and the use of type 2 pronominal suffixes identify these plural nouns. So we learned that the masculine plural endings drop off and the suffix type 2 suffixes go on them, but in this case in the feminine nouns they retain their plural endings, and then you add the pronominal suffix onto it. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some vowel changes in nouns with pronominal suffixes. Remember, back in the lesson when we started nouns, we went through vowel reductions and showed how vowels would reduce, and you learned how to, what a tonic syllable was, what a pretonic syllable, and what a propretonic syllable was. And right here we have the lexical form here of davar, okay, which has a comments here under both these syllables. All right, when we add a suffix form onto davar, what happens is it creates another syllable. The hirikyo creates another syllable. This goes from a 2-syllable word to now a 3-syllable word. The accented syllable is still the end syllable here, the tonic syllable, but what happens is this syllable with the dalet becomes further removed from the accented syllable. Thus, the comments reduces to a shava like it does when we learned about the nouns. When we add the plural ending on a masculine noun, it did the same thing. It reduced down the furthest way the propratonic syllable. So this would be the tonic syllable, pretonic syllable, and propratonic syllable. This is the furthest syllable away. Thus, it takes the shortest sound and the shortest vowel or sound on that word, that syllable here. Okay. If we want to go to davar again, and but we want to say their words, we basically say divrehim, divrehin. What's happened here is not only do you have a shavah here, you got 1, 2, 3, but you also have a reduction of this vowel into a shavah, and you can't have two continuous shavahs side by side here. The first one will lengthen to a heuric. Now you can have two contiguous if they're in the middle, but you can't have the first two syllables being shavahs. The first one will lengthen to a heuric, and the second one will be non-vocal. It will be silent. So that's where we get the word div, re, hin. Their words. And remember, you see that Sarah Yod, that's telling you that that is a type 2. That is a type 2 pronominal suffix. So the noun is plural. Their words. That would be a third feminine singular, a third feminine plural pronominal suffix on a plural noun. Okay. All right. Well, let's go to bite for house. Your house is beitecha, beitecha. Your house. So we just add the second masculine singular pronominal suffix on here. This actually reduces to a construct form. We'll get into constructs in the next chapter here. This patak yod heuric lengthens to a serai yod. This is called a diphthong, where you have two or more sounds, two or more vowels creating one sound here. And what happens, we have a contraction here of these vowels, which contract into to form the serai yod here. And that's the reason why you're more familiar with bait than you are with Beth or bait than you are with bite. Because most times you see house in construct. The house of David, Beit David, the house of David. Beit Shlomo, the house of Solomon. I mean, you see bait by itself, bite by itself, but you see bait more frequently, and that's just the construct form of bite here. We also have mawet, which is death, mawet, and this is another diphthong here. The chametz, the vav, and the segal contract into the whole and vav, and we have moto, his death. So some of these vowel changes are predictable and are followed prescribed rules, but many will deviate from expected patterns. Rather than focus on the following on the change of vowels, it's preferable just to concentrate on what does not change in here. So, like I said, you're going to go through this. It's going to be so common like the back of your hand because you're going to see so much in your homework. You're going to read so much in the scriptures that you're going to get very familiar with it right there in here. Okay, well, let's go ahead and end our session here. Well, let's go ahead and get on the monosyllabic nouns with pronominal suffix, and we'll finish up this one here. Monosyllable nouns with pronominal suffix. There are a number of high-frequency one-syllable nouns that will add the yod to their stem before pronominal suffix. This occurs only when the noun is singular. As you observe from the following paradigms, the addition of this yod to singular nouns with type 1 suffixes may cause them to be confused with plural nouns having type 2 suffixes. So with regard to consonants, both paradigms are identical. The singular noun paradigm, however, has a heuric yod throughout, like your brother, achicha. This is what I just talked about, achicha. The plural noun paradigm varies its vowel, but never has a hierarchic yod. It has, a Segol yod in here. So recognizing this distinction now will prevent the confusion later. The singular noun ach for brother and its plural achim, brothers, are presented below with type 1 and type 2 suffixes here. And so it just gives you, again, we got the hierarchic yod is what shows you the difference, that this is a type 1 and the others are type 2. So you got achi, achicha, achik, achiv, achicha, achinu, achinu, achichim, achichin, achichin, achichin. Again, looking at the hierarchic yod, this is what tells you that this is a type 1. The noun is singular. And the type 2 here, everything else, like the Segol Hay, the Kamish Yod, Segol Yod, Seri Yod, all these tell us that it is type 2 on this one syllable word here. Okay, so far we studied the nouns with the type 1 and type 2 suffixes. We've gone through masculine nouns, singular and plural, and we've gone through the feminine nouns, singular and plural, and with their pronominal suffixes added to them. Next lesson we'll go back into and we'll study the pronominal suffixes that are added to prepositions. Until next time, all right, shalom.